I'm going to give a little how-to on the critical thinking. Okay, so our end goal is to have something that looks kind of like this. All right, we've all been looking at that already. So our first step to creating our mountain cabin will be to create the topography. So you can see here the topography starts at 0, 0. Okay, maybe make this a little bit bigger. Topography starts at 0, 0, and then our next line is going to be at about 1 foot, and then we're going to rise 10 feet in this very kind of small amount of area, and we'll end at 11 feet. So let's go ahead and create our topography. So I'm going to use maybe an area about 100 by 100 or so. So I'm just going to get a little detail line, and I'm going to draw a box that's about 100 by 100. Maybe a little bigger, maybe 150 by 150. Let's see, 100 I think will be good. Okay, that's good enough. So let's put this in the middle of all of our views. Okay, that looks good. And let's go ahead and create the topography. So we're going to go to Massing and Site, Topo Surface, and we're going to do our best to try to mimic this little topo map diagram that I've already created. Okay, so we're going to start at 0, 0, and we're going to go over to 1, then 10, then 11 feet. So I'm going to go to Place Point. All right, Place Point. I'm creating this map, and I'm going to start at 0, 0. And I'm going to go to my site plan actually. All right, and let's actually copy this square over to my site plan. Site plan is usually where I like to create my topography because I have the most range of the views. Okay, so let me just copy this in place. Okay, and let's go back to Topo Surface, Place Point. We'll start at 0, 0, and we're going to go 0. 0, and then I'm going to change this to 1. We're going to go close to the middle here, we'll say about in this area. Okay, you don't really need 4 dots, you could do just 2, just keeping it simple. I'm sorry?
It said 3 minimum on the computer.
It said 3 minimum? Oh, on my tutorial?
No, it just says when you...
Oh, you need 3 minutes? Really? I've never run into that. So I just created 2 right there. Let's see, let's just backtrack and let's see what that does.
Well, it didn't create your model until you did your script.
It did, it's just you can't see it because it's at 0, 0. Okay, so that's 1. And then you could do all the rest individually. I'm actually just going to jump right up to 10 feet. Okay, 10 feet. Like so. So there's our main slope change is right here in the middle, and then I'm going to end at 11 feet, and that's going to be over here. Okay, so there's our topography map. Very simple. I'm not really concerned about any, really technical topography. I'm just basically looking for this steep grade right in the middle of the site. So I'm going to go ahead and hit check, and we can look at this in 3D now, and we get an idea of our slope. That looks about right. Looks pretty good. Okay, so the next step is going to be to create our building pad. So we're going to want to create our building pad 20 by 40 feet. And my goal is that the left edge of my building pad will align pretty closely with the top of that slope. All right, so again, I'm going to go back to just say level, actually let's go to my site plan just so I could see my entire slope here. And I'm going to go to Massing and Site, Building Pad, and then I'm going to create a rectangle and make sure that my constraint is on level 1 so that this will actually go to level 1. And I will go ahead and build a 20 foot by 40 foot building pad. Okay, so about like that. All right, I think that looks pretty good. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and hit check. And now if I go back to my 3D view, I should see a nice little indentation in my topography with my building pad on it. Now, something that I did for my last time I did this was I actually extended my building pad a little bit further, and I created a little bit of a walkway that allows you to have a little bit of space between the curtain wall and the edge of the topography. Now, even though I didn't say to do that in the exercise prompt, that's a good example actually of kind of some different scenarios that you'll run into when you're creating things that you kind of just have to act on your own. Okay, you're not always going to have kind of a perfect step-by-step explanation, so sometimes you just have to kind of think outside the box to get the optimal result that you're looking for. So what I did was I did the edit boundary, okay, and then I just extended this another, I think, 5 feet. So this ended up being my walkway, so 5 feet, and then I just extended it out like that. Okay, now I use my trim tool, like so. Hit check. Oh, building pad can't be outside the edge of the topography, that's right. Okay, and there we go. So if you look at this in 3D, you can see that we have the building pad for our building. We also have a little walkway that kind of cuts through our topography. Realistic, just so we can get a little bit of color. All right, and now we have the area needed to create the 3D massing of our cabin. All right, so I'm going to go back to my level 1 floor plan, or your site plan, whatever works. Site plan probably works pretty good because we've been working with that the whole time. And let's go ahead and create the massing. So I'm going to go over to In Place Mass. All right, so In Place Mass, and I'm going to click on mass number 1. Now I'm going to do this 2 different ways. I'm going to show you 2 different ways that you could create this kind of unique shape. Okay, so you can see here that we have this shape right here. So that's the end result. And like Revit, a lot of the times there's multiple ways to kind of get that result. So let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to go ahead and create a rectangle to match my 20 by 40. All right, and I think that should be just like that. All right, so that's a rectangle. I'm gonna go ahead and click on that rectangle. All right, so it has all 4 sides selected, even though it's kind of hard to see because it's kind of overlapping with the topography. But you want to make sure that all 4 of your lines are currently connected. And then from there, I'm going to go over to Create Form and go to Solid Form. So now we have an actual 3-dimensional shape. All right, and if we look at that in 3D, we can kind of get an idea of what that's starting to look like. So I'm going to select the whole top surface. Right now, it is 10 feet tall. If you look at our little diagram here, we're looking for something that is 30 foot tall. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and change this to 30 feet. Let's see, let's select that top again, and we will change this to 30 feet. Okay, so that's kind of the general massing of that shape. Okay, so now we're gonna do a little pushing and pulling of our different walls to get this shape. All right, you can see here that our left wall is going to go down to 10 feet, and whereas the peak of our roof is going to be about in the middle of our building here, and it's going to be at 30 feet. So I'm going to start by taking this left edge, okay, this left edge, and I am going to change its height to 10 feet. Okay, so notice that I just selected, let me go back. Okay, I'm just selecting the edge. I'm not selecting the entire face. So notice that if I tab through my options here, I have my entire upper face selected in that instance, but all I want is actually just the edge. Okay, I'm going to drop that edge down to 10 feet, like so, and that's going to represent the left face of our building. Okay, notice that it's nice and aligned with the edge of our topography. So that works pretty well. All right, so the next step is going to be to take this right edge that we have. Okay, notice that it says 20 feet right here. If I want that to now be in the middle to represent the peak of our roof, I'm going to change this. What would we change this to? 10 feet, right, exactly. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to 10. That moves that over, and that gives us the actual shape of our mountain cabin. Okay, still pretty rough, but that will start to allow us to place some actual materials on the massing. So as soon as you're done with that, go ahead and hit check, finish mass, and we can go ahead and insert a couple of the floors. So if I click on that massing, I'm going to go to mass floors. I'm going to click on level 1 and level 2. Now, did I have a level? Yeah, so this, oh, actually I think I need one more level. This is ground 1 and 2. I haven't created my levels yet. So let me go over to cancel. Let's go to my, here we go. Let's add a level 3. All right, so there's our level 3, and now I can go back to my massing, do that same process, and let's add a level for all 3 floors. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, there we go. That top space might be a little Might be a little cramped. But that's okay. So actually, to fix that, let's actually, I'm going to make it not 10 feet. I'm going to maybe say this is going to be 18 feet. Okay, so you can see it actually moved it down. That's probably now at least a somewhat inhabitable space. Okay, so let's go ahead and add our roof. I'm going to go over to architecture, and I'm going to go to roof, and I'm going to do roof by face. Okay, and before I do that, let's go ahead and create a roof type. Maybe we want something with some interesting character, interesting color. This is a mountain cabin, however. So if we go up here, kind of hard to tell exactly what it is, but maybe it's like a copper roof, or I'll let you guys determine what that is. I'm going to go to edit type, and I'm going to say, let's call this mountain cabin roof. Now, if you really wanted to, actually it'd be kind of interesting. This is not a part of it. You could even do a beam system. That could be kind of an interesting feature for a really steep pitched roof like that. So you guys should know how to do that. For now, though,
you didn't duplicate it.
that's fine.
Okay.
I'm not going to use the other one for this, but you're right in that if you are potentially going to use generic 12-inch roof in the future, then yes, you would want to duplicate it. But I won't run into that situation for this. Edit type, and I can add some details to this. So maybe we'll just say our structure is 10 inches. I'm going to insert another layer. We'll add some plywood. On top of our structure, we'll just say that's an inch. And we'll add a finish on the top. This can be material of your choice, whatever you want. We'll just say that's also an inch. What the actual thickness is of the material that you choose, I'll let you determine that. Let's see, is there one that I could just use off the top? No, let's go ahead and create one. So I'm going to go ahead and call this, let's call this metal roofing. Let's just grab the link to where we're going to need to go. Let's go over to metal roofing, and let's go through, I think it's going to be under thermal air barrier. If you go down to T, you'll see some of those different roofing options. I'm just going to choose maybe this copper roofing right here. That could be kind of interesting. So I'll go ahead and hit OK. And I like that. And maybe even add a bump to it if you want. If you want some actual kind of three-dimensionality to that roof. If you were to do a rendering, that could be a nice little option. Let's see. There's my copper roofing right there. Go ahead and hit open. There's the bump for that. I'm going to hit OK. OK again. And now we have a nice little roof system. And I'm going to select both of these faces, so 1 and 2. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and hit create roof. Okay, so something to think about when you're actually doing that is, let's see. Let me actually backtrack right now. If you go over to your constraints right here, you'll notice that picked faces location. And it says faces at the top of the roof or faces at the bottom of the roof. So what that actually means, and I should have actually looked at that before I actually placed my roof, but do you want the massing, the face of the massing, to be on the upper portion of the roof, or do you want it to be on the under portion of the roof? And I'm actually going to go back because I do actually want it to be faces at the bottom, because when I actually go back and I create that curtain wall on both sides, I want the curtain wall to be able to go and extend to the bottom of the roof and not overlap a foot into the roof. Okay, so let's do a little Control Z. Let's get rid of that. Let's go ahead and do that one more time, except this time we're going to pay a little bit more attention to our constraints. So roof by face, level 3 is fine. Technically it doesn't really matter because you're just going to select those faces, but I'm going to go ahead and say picked faces location. I'm going to say faces at the bottom of the roof. Okay, you could also do an offset if you did the top. That would also do the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to select both faces again. I'm going to do create roof. Notice that this time now that the roof is on top of the mass. Okay, so that's ideally what we want, so that when we create our walls, when we create our floors as well, the floors are actually on the inside of the mass versus overlapping with our roof. Okay, so that's going to be good. So I'm going to click on my roof system that we have here. And let's see, let's just get the roof. Do I have the roof? Okay, perfect. And let's look at a couple of our other different options. So these are going to be typical options that you have with any roof, regardless if you're doing it for this exercise. Notice that at the very bottom of the construction, it says rafter cut. What do you want those rafters to look like? Now, this is purely an aesthetic thing. This is depending on what you are interested in for your project. But notice that you have a couple different options. Mainly, I'm just making you aware that this is an option, okay? So plumb cut, you'll notice that you have both edges of the rafters here being at 180 degrees, okay? So that is one option right there. You could also change that roof to plumb, okay, if you want it to be kind of like that. All right, you can also do two cut square, okay, which is, let's see, actually not sure what the difference is between those two. It always seems to be exactly the same. I think it has something to do with actually the pitch. But I'm gonna go ahead and leave this at plumb cut, okay? So it's actually gonna extend all the way to the bottom, all right? And that will give us kind of the basis of our roof. Something that you might also do is you could add a fascia, all right? If you wanna actually cover up this edge here, you could go over to roof, fascia, and we'll say this is 1 by 12, and we could select the edges of our roof. It's actually not really a big enough fascia to even work for that kind of a cut, but it's an option. Okay, so next step, let's go ahead and add the floors to our cabin. Now I'm going to do something a little bit different. I am actually going to select my massing, and I'm going to inset the face of the wall. Okay, I don't want my curtain wall to be right at the face. I actually want maybe like a 1 foot eave at the top of it so that there's a little bit of cover. So I am going to take this face, whoops, go back, and I'm going to pull it in about 1 foot. Okay, so I'm going to say about like that. Now you could actually click on edit in place, and you could actually determine if you want that to be exactly 1 foot. You could go to edit in place, you could select that face like that, all right, and I could change this to say 39 feet. Okay, that goes in 1 foot. Maybe you want a little bit more of an eave. Whoops, sorry, 38 feet. All right, I could do the same thing on this side. I'm going to select this face, and I'm going to change this to 36 now. And that gives us a nice little inset on our what will eventually be curtain walls. Okay, so finished mass. Notice that our floors inside automatically have updated. All right, I'm not going to add a floor to the bottom because our pad is actually acting as our floor. If you wanted to create a separate floor that is maybe just your finish, maybe you're going to put the hardwood directly over the concrete, that's an option. Okay, but for the upper 2 floors, I am going to do architecture. I'm going to do floor by face. Actually, before we do that, let's just see what we have in terms of floors. I don't think we have much. Let's go ahead and create our own. I'm going to go ahead and do duplicate. I'm going to say maybe, let's call this 8-inch floor assembly. That's not how you spell that. All right, and I'm going to say this is, we'll say 6-inch rafter or 6-inch floor joists or something along those lines. We'll do the same thing we did for our roof. Give some thickness to that. And maybe we'll make the inside hardwood, give them some nice hardwood floors. All right, let's say new material. Let's call this hardwood. It's so funny that people come and just watch this class from the windows. It's kind of creepy. I've had someone literally stand right here in the entire class and watch it for like 3 hours.
Free class.
Free class, why not?
Take mental notes.
All right. All right, so go ahead and add a, let's add a hardwood finish. That's going to be good. Go ahead and hit OK. Let's give it a thickness. We'll say it's maybe 1/2 inch. And we'll hit OK. And now I'm going to, let's see, what did I just do there? Discard the floor, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and go to floor by face, and I'm going to select both of the upper faces, and I'm going to go ahead and click on create floor. All right, that looks pretty good. It's a nice thick flooring assembly. Let's make sure this is the one that we want. I'm going to change that from generic 12-inch to, let's see, where'd it go? I must have accidentally canceled it when I hit the cancel button. That's fine. I'm just going to go ahead and we'll just use this wood finish right here. And actually, that looks just fine. That'll do the trick. All right, so we're getting a little bit closer. We now have our flooring assembly inside for both level 1 and level 2. The next thing that we're going to want to do is add our curtain wall. So one problem that we're going to have here eventually is that our floors will actually intersect our curtain wall. So something that you might want to do, because once the curtain wall comes in, I believe it's going to come in right in at the face of that massing. You could still select these floors and you can click on edit boundary just like you would if you created it not using the massing tool. And you can maybe just indent these floors by maybe like, we'll just say like 4 inches or something like that. All right, just so that they don't overlap, 4 inches, check mark. I'll wait to do the top one just to see actually how much it actually does that. So from here, I'm going to go over to architecture, and I'm going to go over to curtain system. Okay, so remember when you're doing a wall by face, you could do a just generic wall. So I could do any of the actual basic walls that are not curtain walls or storefronts. That is an option when you're using the massing tool. But if you want to do actual glass for your massing, you need to do the curtain wall option. So we're going to go to architecture. I'm going to go to curtain system, and I'm going to click on each of the faces on both sides of our cabin. Okay, like so. Obviously, we're going to have kind of a weird situation here where our glass is looking right into the earth. We could spend a little time later kind of dialing that in a little bit. Maybe create a little bit of a patio and so that doesn't look so funky, but not a big deal for now. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the 2 different faces, and I'm going to click on curtain system. All right, notice that this, that's kind of funny. It gives us kind of a really kind of funky grid line here. Oh, you know what? I remember this happening last time. The reason why it actually gives this grid line is because we took this upper face of the massing and actually pulled it down. I'm going to show you another way to create this not even using the massing tool. Unfortunately, you could still use this. You could take it and you could start to rotate the grid lines using this over here. It just starts to become not the most ideal situation. So under grid 1, you could change the angle of the grid to like minus, let's see, minus 25. So we're starting to get there, and you can continue to mess with the different angles until you get that all dialed in, but you'll probably spend more time doing that than you really want to. So I'm going to show you another way to create that system. So I'm going to go to level 1. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my typical wall assembly tool. I'm going to go over to storefront, and let's see, let's create some kind of a system here. I'm going to say the top constraint is 20 feet. That's fine, because what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to edit the profile of the wall to actually fit our kind of unique shape. All right, maybe we apply a couple different rules to our grid system. I'm going to say for our vertical grid, we have 6-foot spacing. I'm going to say fixed distance, and my horizontal grid spacing is going to be maximum spacing of 3 feet. All right, and I'll go ahead and just leave all of that as is. Hit OK, and I'm going to draw that here right at the edge. Let's see, for my location line, this is fine for now. Let's just kind of see what this gets us. I'm going to bring this to the edge of my wall assembly, so that's 20 feet, or I'm sorry, my roof assembly, and we'll go ahead and click. Okay, I'm going to take this entire system, I'm going to move it just inside this massing, like so, and I'm going to go to my 3D view, and let's go ahead and edit this. So I'm going to go ahead and select the entire assembly, and I am going to click on Edit Profile. All right, so this will allow me to then use my Pick Lines tool, and I'm going to pick the inside face of my roof at both edges. Okay, and then we'll use our trim tool to trim out the overall shape. Okay, so that looks good, and I'll just delete these other two lines. Okay, everyone see how we did that there? And I'm going to go ahead and hit the check mark. And I'm going to hit delete element, that's fine. And from there, we have our curtain system. So you can see here that we actually still have an overlapping floor. That is actually why I changed, that's why I actually indented that wall assembly just a little bit. You can see there that it might still be overlapping just a bit, but again, I can click on that floor assembly, go to edit boundary, and I think this curtain wall is actually 5 inches thick, so I'm going to move it inside 5 inches. And hit the check mark. Okay? We all see that? All right, so we're getting a little bit closer. So I'm going to then turn off my, oh, you know what we're kind of forgetting here? We're forgetting a wall, an interior wall for the inside of, we kind of need some kind of a retaining wall to keep all that dirt from flowing inside of our building. So I'm going to go over to wall by face, and let's pick maybe like the 12-inch retaining wall concrete. I think that should work. And I'm going to select that face, and let's make sure that our location line is finish face or core face interior. Okay, that should keep our massing. Oh, actually, let's do the, I guess we would do the opposite. So we can either do the exterior like that, but we would need to move our building pad out a little bit, or we can do core face exterior. All right, so that it actually, the exterior of the retaining wall is actually at the same face as our dirt. Let's change that to core face exterior. Let's select that now. And you can see, it's not really the greatest effect either. Let's do interior, like so. So we have our retaining wall. It's not the most ideal situation right there. If you wanted to actually click on our building pad, you could actually extend that out a foot. That's actually how they would build that anyways. They would actually put the retaining wall on top of the slab anyways. So let's click on our pad. Let's see, why is that not letting me change that? That's the topo. All right, give me a second here. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to edit the boundary of my building pad, and let's move this out 1 more foot. Okay, so that's a little bit better. So I mean, it still needs some work to make it actual, you know, if we're getting to a little closer to actual construction or being actually accurate, but I think you guys get the point. So any questions about that? So there's still a few more things that I could do. All right, I could still add my curtain wall over to the other side here. It would be the exact same method of doing it over here on this side. Okay. One thing that I think I actually request to do is to actually place a door. All right, so if you want to do that, what I'll do is let's actually hide our massing first. So I'm going to go over to massing and site. I'm going to click on show mass. That will actually remove that massing temporarily. All right, and I'm going to select my storefront, and I'm going to add a horizontal offset of 7 feet. All right, so that actually bumps up our first level horizontal mullion so that we can place a door. So right now we have this on 6-foot spacing, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that mullion. I'll select this space right here, and I'm going to load in my storefront door. So I'm going to go to doors, and I'm going to go to door, curtain wall, storefront. Okay, hit OK. And there we go. We have that door. I can change the detailing to fine if you want to see the door handles. And you can see there that this little cabin is starting to come to life. Okay, so that's pretty close to the more finished product that I showed you guys earlier. Another thing that I had in my scene before I did a rendering, I think that was also a part of the exercise, was to do just one kind of simple rendering, was I added some trees to the background. All right. To do that, you might want to go to Architecture, Component, Place Component, and to find trees that'll be just like, you know, loading indoors or other entourage that you added for the residence project, you'll go over to Load, except you're going to go to Site, or actually not Site, you're going to want to go to Planting. That's right, thank you. So we'll go to Planting, and I'm going to say I want some, maybe some conifer trees, all right, because we're in the mountains. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And notice that now when you go up to here, you'll see a variety of different trees that you could pick from. So what you actually pick is up to you. I could start to add a handful of different trees to my site. Okay, just keep in mind when you start to add a bunch of different trees, one, the rendering takes longer, and your computer will also start to kind of bog down a little bit because it takes a lot to show all these trees on this realistic view. If you're having trouble with spinning the model around, if you do add trees, you can always change this to hidden line, okay? And that will move around a lot smoother. Any questions about any of that? Okay, so go ahead and get started. We'll work on this a little bit longer because most of that time that I originally said was taken up by the tutorial. But that should get you started. Let's work on that till about we'll say 10:45 or 10:30, 10:45 or so, and then we'll start to look at our next project.
If you want to add some funky shape of the roof, like a palm window, you upload a video to do that with Spanish profile or something.
Oh, you're talking about like a different material?
Yeah.
So instead of, like, I selected copper for mine, if instead of selecting the copper, you would just select whatever material you want.
No, I'm talking about